In 2006, we didn't just update a definition. We erased a world from the official map of our solar system. A place that had held its title for generations was suddenly downgraded, dismissed, and quietly pushed aside into a new category, dwarf planet. To many, it sounded harmless, scientific, technical, but in reality, it felt like exile. Pluto, the distant, frozen sentinel at the edge of everything we know, was no longer considered a true planet. It became, in the eyes of humanity, something lesser, a relic, a leftover, a forgotten fragment drifting in the dark. For decades, we imagined it as exactly that. A silent, dead rock, locked in eternal darkness, too small and too distant to matter. A frozen fossil from the birth of the solar system. There was no urgency to understand it, no expectation of discovery, just a cold, lonely object circling far beyond Neptune, barely touched by sunlight. But then we did something extraordinary. We built a machine, a spacecraft designed to chase the edge of existence itself. And we sent it on a journey that would take nearly 10 years, traveling at speeds faster than anything humanity had ever sent into deep space. Its mission was simple, at least on paper: fly past Pluto, take pictures, and send them back. No one was prepared for what it would reveal. Imagine leaving Earth behind. At first, the sun is everything: blinding, dominant, overwhelming. But as you travel farther and farther outward, something strange begins to happen. The sunlight weakens, it softens. The warmth fades. The sun shrinks from a massive burning sphere into something smaller, less significant. Eventually it becomes just another bright star among thousands. By the time you reach Pluto, the transformation is complete. Daylight, as we understand it, no longer exists. The sun is still there, but it's distant. So distant that its light is hundreds of times dimmer than what we experience on a cloudy day on Earth. If you stood on Pluto's surface at noon, you wouldn't see a blue sky. There would be no warm glow, no comforting brightness. Instead, you'd stand beneath a pitch-black sky, illuminated only by a faint, cold star. It would feel less like day and more like a permanent twilight suspended between existence and oblivion. And then, in 2015, the spacecraft arrived. As its cameras came online and began transmitting images across billions of miles, the first glimpses of Pluto appeared. At first, they were blurry, indistinct, but as the data sharpened, something emerged, something no one expected: a heart. Stretching across the surface of this distant world was a massive, bright, perfectly shaped heart. It was enormous, thousands of kilometers wide, and it stood out against the darker terrain around it like a signal, a message, a cosmic anomaly. To the public it was charming, endearing, a symbol of warmth in the coldest place imaginable. But to scientists it was deeply unsettling, because that heart wasn't just a surface feature. It was something far more complex, far more dangerous. This region, later named Sputnik Planitia, is not solid ground in the way we think of it. It is a vast basin filled with a glacier made of nitrogen, methane, and carbon monoxide, substances that, on Earth, exist only as gases. But here, in the extreme cold of Pluto, they freeze into solid form, creating an alien landscape unlike anything in our world. And yet, despite the freezing temperatures, nearly minus 390 degrees Fahrenheit, this glacier is not still. It moves. Deep beneath Pluto's crust, there is a faint but persistent source of heat. It's not much, just a trace of radioactive energy left over from the planet's formation, but it's enough. Enough to create slow convection currents within the nitrogen ice. Enough to make the surface behave like a thick, sluggish ocean. The result is something almost impossible to imagine: a frozen sea that churns, Massive cells of ice slowly rise and fall, like bubbles in a pot of boiling liquid, except the process takes thousands, even millions of years. The surface is constantly renewing itself, erasing any scars left behind by impacts. Any asteroid that crashes into this region doesn't leave a lasting crater. Instead, it is slowly swallowed, dragged beneath the surface, and erased from existence. It is a world that consumes everything that touches it. And at the edges of this vast, toxic sea, the landscape becomes even more surreal. Mountains rise, towering, jagged, and immense, but they are not made of rock. On Pluto, rock is almost irrelevant. The temperatures are so low that water itself freezes into something far stronger than granite. Ice becomes the bedrock of the world. These mountains, some reaching heights of over 10,000 feet, are composed entirely of water ice, hard as steel, sharp as glass. They dominate the horizon, casting long shadows across the frozen plains. But the most disturbing detail is this: they don't stay still. Because the nitrogen ice beneath them is denser than the water ice that forms the mountains, these massive structures can actually float. Entire pervert ranges can break away and drift across the surface like enormous icebergs, moving slowly, almost imperceptibly, across the toxic sea. Imagine standing there, in the darkness, watching an entire mountain range glide toward you in silence. And then there's the color. At first glance, Pluto appears pale, muted whites and soft grays. But look closer, and you'll see something else, something darker, something that shouldn't be there: red. The peaks of these icy mountains are dusted with a deep reddish hue, like dried blood staining the surface. This isn't paint. It isn't mineral deposits like we find on Earth. It's the result of a chemical reaction triggered by ultraviolet light from the distant sun. When this faint radiation strikes methane frozen on Pluto's surface, it breaks the molecules apart and recombines them into complex organic compounds. These particles drift down from the atmosphere like snow, settling across the landscape in a thin crimson layer, a constant, silent snowfall of red. Over time, it coats everything: the mountains, the plains, the edges of the frozen sea, giving Pluto its eerie, otherworldly appearance. A world of black skies and red snow, where the ground itself seems alive. For many years, scientists believed Pluto was frozen solid all the way through. A dead core, no movement, no activity. But the data told a different story. The sheer weight of Sputnik Planitia should have caused Pluto to reorient itself over time, shifting its position as gravity redistributed the mass. But that didn't happen. The planet remained stable, which meant one thing: there had to be something beneath the surface balancing it out. Something massive. Something hidden. The leading theory is as astonishing as it is unsettling. Beneath Pluto's frozen crust lies a vast ocean of liquid water, trapped under layers of ice, insulated by pressure, and kept from freezing by that same faint internal heat. An ocean, in one of the coldest places in the solar system. It would be completely dark. No sunlight could ever reach it. The pressure would be immense. The water would be near freezing, possibly mixed with ammonia or other chemicals to keep it liquid. And yet it exists. Which raises a question that humanity has asked over and over again in every corner of the cosmos. Where there is liquid water, could there be life? We don't know. We have no evidence, no samples, no direct observations. But the possibility is there, lurking beneath miles of ice, hidden from view. A silent, black ocean on a world we once dismissed as lifeless. As the spacecraft completed its flyby, it turned back for one final look. What it captured was breathtaking. Pluto passed directly in front of the sun, creating an eclipse. And in that moment, Something unexpected appeared. A thin, glowing ring of blue light surrounding the planet. An atmosphere. Despite its size and distance, Pluto has a fragile envelope of gases, primarily nitrogen, extending outward into space. When backlit by the sun, it glows with a soft, ethereal blue, one final glimpse of beauty before the spacecraft continued its journey into the unknown. But Pluto is not alone. Locked in a gravitational embrace with it is a massive moon, so large relative to Pluto that the two form something more like a binary system than a traditional planet and satellite. They don't orbit one another in the usual way. Instead, they circle a point in space between them, bound together in a constant, unbreakable dance. If you stood on Pluto, this moon would dominate your sky. It would never rise or set. It would simply hang there, enormous and unmoving, watching. And if you traveled to the opposite side of Pluto, you would never see it at all. The moon itself is scarred, marked by a massive dark region at its pole, a stain of deep red, formed by gases that escaped Pluto's atmosphere and froze onto its surface. Two worlds sharing material, sharing history, sharing an environment at the edge of existence. Around them, smaller moons tumble chaotically, spinning unpredictably, their paths shaped by the complex gravitational forces of the system. They are irregular, broken remnants, likely the result of an ancient collision that reshaped everything. Together they form a system unlike any other. A frozen kingdom in the dark. We may have changed its classification. We may have stripped away its title. But none of that changes what Pluto is. It is not a dead rock. It is not insignificant. It is a dynamic, evolving, deeply complex world. A place of shifting ice, floating mountains, chemical snow, and hidden oceans. A place that challenges our understanding of what a planet can be. It doesn't need validation from us. Long after Earth is gone, long after the sun has exhausted its fuel and faded into darkness, Pluto will still be there, continuing its slow orbit, maintaining its silent dance in the outer reaches of the solar system. And perhaps that's the most humbling part of all. We thought we understood it. We thought we had defined it. But in the end, Pluto revealed something far more powerful than a label. It reminded us how little we truly know. And as we look outward, beyond Pluto, deeper into the vast expanse of the Kuiper Belt and beyond, one thing becomes clear. The universe is not quiet. It is not simple. And it is certainly not finished surprising us. Because just beyond that frozen silence, closer to the sun, there are worlds where the winds scream at unimaginable speeds, where storms rage for centuries, where the very atmosphere tears itself apart and rains down diamonds from the sky. But that is a story for another time. So keep looking up and stay curious. Stay